Chris Abel is here, tech expert, to chat about all things tech, devices, nerdiness, and awesome. Not to mention, if you go find Chris Abel on Twitter, he does post this stuff after the fact. Chris, thanks for coming back to the show. Why don't you share that Twitter handle so everyone can find you?
So people can find me at Real Chris Abel. And of course, I spell my name a little differently. It's Krisabel. Real Chris Abel. You'll find me on all the different socials.
Very good. And I am Shane Hewitt on Twitter and Instagram and all those things. So you can, and ShaneHewitt.ca is a nice, easy to link it with me. But I usually, as long as I catch them in the feed, retweet out Chris's stuff. So you're going to see it there on his or on mine. You can go follow him. That would be awesome. And it turns out that Tony Tedesco set a new record for mobile data use about Taylor Swift this week. Oh, no, that was Taylor Swift fans. Sorry.
Correct. I mean, unless Tony Tedesco has become a massive, biggest Taylor Swift fan of all time. But no, this is about the Swifties. So Taylor Swift did come to Toronto recently. She had a series of concerts. And although this was across on multiple nights, there was one night in particular, November 21st, in that the Swifties almost brought down the cellular networks. Everybody had their phones out. They were all trying to transmit their experiences and share them online. And all the cellular networks in that center, the Rogers Center, had a really difficult night. Rogers said that for their share, this was the all-time record that they've ever experienced at the Rogers Center. That throughout the course of the night, Swiftie fans had transmitted 7.4 terabytes of data, which works out to be about 182,000 photos, or 1,600 hours of streaming video. And keep in mind that people are trying to transmit stuff using social media apps, which are designed to compress the files down and make them already small to make things as efficient as possible. So this is amazing. This is astounding, the amount of data that was trying to be transmitted at the same time. Rogers is crowing that they managed to have their network because of 5G investments, that it didn't crash. That the Swifties managed to be able to transmit all their data. There wasn't a problem. They're bragging about that, but still, it's just astounding how much material that the Taylor Swift fans were trying to transmit.
I was trying to check out my modem and see if I could see how much I use here between running the business and the radio show. And it only gives me percentages on here. That's too bad, because terabytes, you have to understand, is massive, compressed in and efficient as they are. Like, I mean, it is possible Tony could have sent about 180,000 photos, though. He did really he wanted a Taylor Swift 22 hat bad. But
the second place in the record is an artist named Digit Dosanjh. His concert and his fans transmitted 5.4 terabytes. So that was the most that Rogers had experienced before. And then Taylor Swift fans came along and said, oh yeah, here, hold my beer. 7.4 terabytes. So they really kind of plowed through. I've had the experience of watching a network crash. So in Las Vegas at this Consumer Electronics Show, I've seen so many people use their phone at the same time that it just brings the network down. And what happens is certain services crash first. So at first, email would just stop working and everybody would switch over to text messaging. And then eventually text messaging would crash. You know, it was whatever's the most efficient network becomes the last platform to go down.
Good stuff. Chris Abel is here, and I don't know if you've ever been in a casino or some of the stores at the mall. The way that they curate the smells in the store is a big deal. It's crazy when you can have a smell be matching a taste. But what about a completely simulated, like VR robot taste? You got that too?
That's right. So virtual reality, of course, it's a great visual experience. There's a lot of companies who are trying to figure out ways to come up with technology that gives you an experience for the other senses. And right now, City University in Hong Kong says they've come up with a way to include taste into virtual reality. The way that it works is that in virtual reality, you're in your fantasy world. Maybe you see a piece of food or a drink, you reach out, you grab it. In the real world, you're holding in your hand a little plastic lollipop. And when you take that lollipop and you bring it to your mouth and you lick it, it then causes the lollipop to transmit or excrete a bit of aerosol gel. And now when that gel mixes in with your saliva, there are chemicals that create a recipe that produce a specific kind of taste. And so what I'm impressed is I've seen across the decades all sorts of attempts to try to create artificial tastes. And usually the first round is usually 1 or 2 tastes, and that's about it. But they've managed to get 9 different flavors. So based upon what's happening in the video game, you can be given an experience that features sugar, salt, citric acid, cherry, passion fruit, green tea, milk, and get this, grapefruit or durian. Durian I'm impressed with, that they can simulate durian, which is an acquired taste to say the least, as a really kind of rotten experience fruit. But they've managed to reproduce that so that in virtual reality, you can have your durian experience.
I'm pretty sure there are a couple of VR experiences. The last thing you need is to be able to smell or taste. So let's move along. Okay, Chris Abel is here. First Canadian rover to go for a rip on the moon. Take your whip, go to the moon.
This is amazing. So yes, Canada is really getting involved in terms of space exploration, because we're going to have with the Artemis 2 mission, we're going to have our first Canadian astronaut, Jeremy Hansen, who's going to at least go to the moon. He'll be in orbit. He's not going to land on the moon yet, but it's amazing how we're really getting involved. And so we're going to have our first rover landing on the moon in 2026. And its mission is to go and search for liquid ice, for water. But what the Canadian Space Agency has done, and you want to Google their website, is that they're holding a vote for what name they're going to give the rover. December 20th is the deadline. You can go to their website and you can vote through a range of choices. So they're not making the mistake that's been made with similar attempts to name vehicles where anybody can kind of come up with their own name, because that was always,
Plowing the plow face for the snow plows.
Last thing we need is a Canuck face or something like that happening. So the choices that they've given is you can go for Athabasca, you can go for Courage, Glacier, or Polar, as in polar, like the North Pole, Polar. One of those names is going to be the name of our very first Canadian rover that's going to land and explore the surface of the moon.
That's cool. That's cool. I like that stuff. This is fantastic. Chris Abel, you can follow Real Chris Abel, you said? Yeah, Real Chris Abel. He comes up in my feed. I already follow him. So but all of this gets tweeted out and gets shared, so you can share it with your friends, which is awesome, from the podcast clips and so much more. Chris, thanks, bud.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we are going to continue with our show now those were good stories. Like, those are stories that make your life better. Coming up next, we have stories that you probably didn't need to know, and they're definitely not going to make your life any better, but maybe they're good news.